Let's take a look at Baker-Hardwick Exhibit 10.2, an example of international parity conditions. In this exhibit, we're going to summarize what we learned in international parity conditions: CIP, UIP, UH, Fisher relationship, PPP, and real interest rate parity, RIP. Everything is summarized in this exhibit. So these numbers are given first. Nominal exchange rate, pound interest rate is 5%, Switzerland interest rate is 3%. Exchange rate, today's exchange rate is CHF Swiss franc 2.5 per 1 pound. Forward rate, this number per 1 pound. And forward premium is given minus 1.90%. Expected exchange rate change is minus 1.90%. And expected inflation is this. We're going to try to understand what this means in the next slide. And we're going to interpret the result into this thing we have here. So given this information, what is the forward premium on pound? So when we compute forward premium or discount on pound, we have to use GBP CHF. Pound should be in the denominator. So forward price of GBP CHF at time t minus spot price of GBP US CHF at time t divided by spot price of GBP CHF at time t. This is how we compute forward premium or discount on pound. So if you just plug in the number 2.4524 instead of F, 2.5 instead of S, we get minus 1.9%. What is the meaning of minus here? Minus means the currency in the denominator, pound, has forward discount. So approximately you can say this is minus 2%. So this means there is a forward discount on pound by 2%. That is what we have here. Forward discount on pound by 2%. And what is the interest rate differential between pound and Swiss francs? So pound interest rate minus Swiss franc interest rate, nominal interest rate, is 5% minus 3% is a 2%. That is given here. And then what is the expected exchange rate change? So given GBP CHF, we can compute changes in exchange rate in this way: new minus old divided by old. Now when we compute appreciations or depreciation of pound, we have to put pound in the denominator. So we're gonna use ST plus 1 GBP CHF, S GBP CHF at time t, S GBP CHF at time t. What is the meaning of expectations? We're going to take conditional expectations on changes in exchange rate. So changes in exchange rate looks like this. Once you take conditional expectation, this will appear only in front of this one, the uncertain thing at time t. So that's why we have this expressions. So this number is already given, minus 1.9%. This means, what is the meaning of sign, negative sign here? This means currency in the denominator, pound, is expected to depreciate by approximately 2%. So that is what we have here. Expected pound depreciations by 2%. Last terms, expected UK Switzerland inflation differential, just difference in expected inflation for pound and expected inflation for Swiss franc. These numbers are given, 1.96%, approximately 2%. That is the number we have here. So we just figure out these four based on these informations. Then we're gonna think about relationship between these two using UH, relationship between these two using PPP, relationship between these two using Fisher relationship between these two using CIP. CIRP is a CIP. Relationship between these two using UIP. Once we do that, we're gonna understand everything in this PH Exhibit 10.2. In order to understand that, let's write down what is CIP and UIP, UH, etc., etc. So what is the CIP? From CIP slide, we know this is CIP. This means the currency with high interest rate has forward discount. And from the UIP slide, we know this is UIP. The meaning is currency with high interest rate is expected to depreciate. And from UH hypothesis, expectation of ST plus 1 is equal to forward price. How do we get this one? When UIP whole and CIP whole together, we have this, right? Now, given these expressions, we can get variation of UH. You can see that, so this is CIP, this is UIP. So instead of interest rate differential, we can just directly say these two are same, right? So when CIP and UIP hold, we can say this is same as this one. That is what we have here. So we can say this is the variation of UH. And from the derivation of RIP, I mentioned that this means the expected version of relative PPP. So we first write down relative PPP, and if you take conditional expectation on that, we get this expression. What was the Fisher relationship? Fisher relationship says nominal interest rate is equal to ex ante real interest rate plus expected ex ante inflation rate forecast. That's true for domestic currency and foreign currency. So given RIP, the ex ante real interest rate is equal to real interest rate in other countries. So ex ante real interest rate for D is equal to ex ante real interest rate for F given RIP. This and this is same. Given that the difference of these two, this will be cancelled, will be just difference between the expected inflation rate. So nominal interest rate differential is equal to expected inflation rate differential. So what I'm trying to say here is the given CIP, UIP, UH, expected RPP, Fisher relationship, RIP, we can figure out the relationship between those four numbers using this various relationship. For example, why this one and this one are equal? Because of UH. Why this one and this one are equal? Because of CIP. So let's take a look at that precisely in the next slide. Given GBP CHF notations, it's natural to set pound as F and CHF as D. Now, what is the one we have here? This is the forward discount on pound. We know this is minus 2%. And interest rate differential, be careful, we have Swiss franc first and GBP in the next. So this is minus 2%. Therefore, CIP implied for discount on pound is equal to interest rate differential between Swiss franc and pound. Both are minus 2%. That's CIP. UIP says expected changes in GBP CHF is equal to interest rate differential. This is again minus 2%, and we know that the pound is expected to depreciate. So minus 2%. So we just verify the relationship between expected changes in exchange rate and interest rate differential. And then we can verify the relationship between expected changes in exchange rate and forward discount on pound. So that's the UH hypothesis, minus 2%. What about the expected relative PPP? The expected relative PPP says expected changes in exchange rate is equal to expected inflation rate differential. So this is minus 2%, this is minus 2%. So we just verify the relationship between these two using expected relative PPP. Finally, Fisher relationship says given real interest rate parity, RIP, interest rate differential is just reflect expected inflation rate differential, 2%. So we just verify everything in PH Exhibit 10.2. So in summary, based on the number given in this exhibit, I explained this term, this term, this term, and this term. And then I showed the relationship between these two using UH, relationship between these two using CIP, these two using Fisher relationship, using these two using actually expected relative PPP, and relationship between these two using UIRP. So in summary, this exhibit gives us whole pictures, the relationship between various numbers given international parity conditions. Please make sure you understand this exhibit.